Hi everyone, welcome to the long-awaited final round of Drip Drop's major open games. And so Drip Drop goes into this game with a score of 3.5 out of 10, which is pretty good actually, even with the 7th bye. They say he's the bottom seed, so the fact he's not going to finish bottom is pretty impressive. And left a few 1700s in his wake, mainly Gunn and Llewellyn. And now we had a very tricky game against Cosy McKean, who, other than Chantel, is the other female player in this 51-player section, which sort of shows that there is not much female interest in chess these days, seeing as 1/25 of the players are female. Our ECF is 153 and our FIDE is 1714, I think, which is actually even more deflated than mine because she's got a slightly higher ECF than me, but FIDE is lower. So this is not good for your FIDE, this game, potentially. Drip Drop had white in this game. I thought I was going to be getting her, actually, because I was just opposite colour to her, but I got an upfloat instead, which is very typical of my luck these days. But even against her, it would have been a tough game, which I probably would have lost, but well. Knight f3 was played, as usual. Drip Drop does have a habit of throwing in some dodgy gambits as well with 1e4, but I think they're mainly safe for passes in minors, not these strong competent players in this very long time control as well. If you play Danish Gambit in this, you're likely to get pasted. D5 was his response. C4, E6, we're probably going to get some kind of Queen's Gambit declined. D4, and now we get a sort of Ragozin variation with Bishop e4 check. This reminds me a bit of the Bulgar Indian, but that's without D5 applied, and the pawn usually goes to D6 in them lines. I mean, more common in this position is to play Knight f6, and then say Knight c3, and then say something like the semi-Slav, or Bishop e4 check was played, which I'm not too keen on actually. Knight c3. I think we might get a sort of Nimzo position. If white plays Queen c2, I think we might transpose to a Queen c2 Nimzo with 4d5. Knight f6. Bishop e5. That impression never gets old. Castles. I think if black chucks in h6, I think white should chop, give the bishop pair up, and then play Queen c2. And prepare to castle queenside, and also stop getting structural damage after bishop c3 check. Say castles, because the point is now black's created a weakness for h6, so white can consider castling long perhaps in some lines. Castle short, e3, a6 was played for some reason. Now this is where it gets very interesting actually, because Drip Drop plays Queen c2, which is a good move of course, because now we can consider playing a3 and after bishop c3, which will probably be played, or white, but in fact black will have to lose a tempo with bishop e7. Which is probably actually the best move because it breaks the pin, and then white can consider playing b4, b5, and aim at black's queen side, which is weakened by a6, or bishop c3, queen c3, and there will be no double pawns, and white can look forward to maybe an advantage with his bishop pair. h6. Now Drip Drop plays a very interesting move, but actually not the best move. What I would play is bishop f6, queen f6, a3, bishop c3, Queen c3, and then probably dc4 will be played. I'd actually play Queen c4 to keep the bishop, put the bishop on d3, and then just castle queenside, perhaps. Maybe castle, but actually not castle queenside. Just put the bishop on d3 or e2, castle's kingside, and play b1, b4, b5, and try and do a minority attack on black's queenside and put a rook on the c file to try and hack the c7 pawn off the board. And I think white will be a bit better. And black's bishop is very blocked in as well, so try and keep the e5 advance under check. But instead he plays the move h4, which is reminiscent of a trap in the Royal Lopez called the fishing pole, where white will attack the bishop with h3, and then black will actually play h5, and if white takes it and then tries to hang on to the piece, then he gets mated on the spot. This one isn't quite as dangerous though, because the knight can come into e4 and there's like a pin there is on the bishop. I would actually recommend actually just declining it, because then the problem is things if you don't take the bishop, then you can actually say h4 is just a weakening move, is what my point is. Just say what's the point of h4, because h4 is pointless if the bishop isn't taken. So even though taking the bishop might be the best, I would actually just continue developing, and I would play something like c5 and fight back in the centre, and then just ask the pawn what he's doing in h4. Just create the weakness in g4. That's why h4 is not good. But the problem is when you start taking the bishop, then it starts to become actually an interesting move after hg, and now knight e4 has to be played. Because otherwise, if you just give the piece back to him, well, then you haven't justified weakening your king side. It's knight e4. And now Drip Drop had to play bishop d3 to intensify the pressure on it. And if f5 is played, he must take. And after, if knight takes f6, then knight e5 is actually very strong. So queen probably has to take, which means if the knight moves, then f2 hangs with check, and then give this pawn back. And black can actually safely play knight c6, because this check is actually not that strong. We can force black's king to the centre and then castle, but in my opinion, Drip Drop wouldn't have enough compensation for the piece here. Okay, he's got 2 pawns and a bit of activity, but this is pretty unclear. This probably favours black, because he can actually try and get the queens off with this next. But that was the best move, because after castle's long, which is logical, bishop c3, bc3. Now Drip Drop's king is going to become weak as well, because there is double pawns and an isolated pawn around his king, and in fact this is not good. But now she makes a mistake as well and plays g6, which is unnecessary weakening, because there is some problems behind this. And actually it reminds me of a game we had on the first day, where after I'd got into Turkey, I had went and checked in my hotel and everything, paid and everything, and then texted Drip Drop to see where he was. He said he was at Beefeater, which was our main hang around place for the next 14 days. So I come round, have a glass of wine, and we have decided to play some 20 plus 10 games in prep for the Rapid the next day. And I played a sort of line like she did, and he did that h4 against me, and then I played g6, and it nearly lost me the game. I was like plus like 30 down or something, and then he blundered the queen and then still nearly beat me, but I managed to win in the end. So yeah, so I sort of had a feeling, I knew that g6 was a bad move in this position when I was looking at the game, because to be honest, I'd lost interest in my game, because this game was just like incredibly interesting. Like my game was just dreadful and boring, and losing as well, I hasten to add. But this game was just I blame my loss in round 11 on this game. Right, it's your fault. Right, but yeah, queen e7 is it's a very simple move actually as well, because now it threatens check on a3 on some lines. In fact, I think the check might have to be stopped actually. If Drip Drop plays bishop d3, then queen. Can we get away with this? Oh, actually, this is not so great, because if queen takes c3, then actually we just play bishop takes e4. So not good. Actually, queen e7 is not the best, and the stronger actually is, I was thinking f5, because it also clears an escape room for the king in some lines. Takes queen, knight take the queen, then bishop d3, and then we can actually maybe just play queen g6, which looks a bit stupid putting the queen in the pin, but it does protect the knight. But then again, maybe Drip Drop can sacrifice his pawn, and actually that's very bad, that. So actually maybe g6 isn't so bad. Maybe this position is actually starting to get quite bad for black. g6 was played, because the problem is after bishop d3, if the knight ever moves, which is actually the best move. If you take this, you gotta watch out for this, where you can't take it, but I think you can just get away with king g7 just about, because if knight takes g5, queen takes g5, rook h7, I think we can actually run the king via f6, and the bishop is now attacked, it has to move, and then actually just go back to e7, and then we'll try to open up the centre as well. with these moves, but this also exposes white's king as well, and maybe we can grab on g2 now the king's off the g-file. But in the game against him, I actually rejected this move because of this sack potentially, but it doesn't have to be taken, of course, and the knight actually covers some key squares. But knight d7 was played, trying to get pieces into the game, but now of course Tripjock gets another pawn for his piece and his queen into the attack. And now this is starting to be very bad, because the only move to avoid losing instantly is to play king g7. Otherwise queen h4 is killing. Well, in fact, no, king g7 is not the only move, because he gets actually now as a forced mate. It's actually, he has a Tripjock actually missed the forced mate in this position. If you want to try and spot it, please stop the video now, it's quite difficult. Yeah, Tripjock could have played rook h7 check. Beautiful move. If the rook is taken, then we have queen h4. The point is to get the king back to the h file, because like I said in the previous position, if we go back, Job is threatening queen h4 mating on the spot in this position. So after king g7, we play rook h7, king takes, and now queen h4, so we've got the queen to the h file with tempo, and after king g7, we can play queen h6 check, king moves back and swing the other rook across, and there's no way to stop the dual threat of queen h7 and queen h8 mate next turn. So the rook can't be taken, so what else does the king do? Well, queen h4 is coming anyway, and black is completely defenceless. So what a beautiful move that was. But did black have the better defences? It's already pretty bad. Rook e8 is probably maybe to try and clear a path for the king. Queen h4 and then king f8, the only move to avoid mate. We just sink the knight into e5. If the knight is taken, then we have queen h8, king e7, queen f6. King gets to go to d file, and then we like take this knight with check. Gets to go to c6, then we just take the queen. And black can resign with a clear conscience. If the knight isn't taken, which opens up the d file for all these nasties, then there's going to be moves like knight takes f7, knight takes g6. If black, the only move actually is to run away with the king again, then we just sack on f7. And the queen's trapped otherwise, so we've got to take it. And then queen f4 check. You have to be quite precise. King g7 gets mated by check, and then check, mate. So that is obviously not a good move. And king g8 is the best, but then we have another sack, rook h8. King takes, and then queen f7. And then we have to play queen takes g5, give the queen up like this. And it seems that black has a lot for the queen, but the problem is now this rook falls as well. And even then it's still a rook, a bishop and knight against a queen and 3 pawns, but it's completely lost because black actually can't develop any pieces. Very long-winded lines here. It shows that knight d7 was a blunder, and maybe even taking the knight in the first place. That move 8 was a blunder as well. King g7. So he played rook h6 instead, which lets black back into the game, because now rook g8 is played, preparing to evacuate the king. Rook h7 check. So it was played this time. Well, of course, if it is taken, then it's a nice simple mate. So it's ignored, of course. Rook dh1. Maybe queen f4 is a slight improvement. And now c5 is played, because black needs to try and get some counterplay against white's fairly exposed king. Queen f4. Queen e7, the only move to defend. Rook h8. And now the only move in this position, c takes d4, which opens up the queen to a3 with some nasty checks potentially. Rook g8 was played. King g8. Queen h4. And now black has one move to avoid mate. She has to clear a square for the king, so queen a3 check. Everything else gets mated in 2 moves. King has to move. King f8, the only move to avoid mate, or complete catastrophe. Queen takes d4, another top engine move by whip drop. Again threatening potential nasties. And now the key move is either to play queen c5, should be played in this position, often a queen swap, which of course has to be rejected because drip chop's still down material. Queen h8, not that one, that check doesn't do anything. Queen h8 check, king e7. And now the only move to keep any compensation is to play rook d1. Very difficult move to see, which does threaten potential. It ties the knight down for a start. And actually I think it ends in a draw in perpetual, actually, which is drip chop has to take it, because otherwise he's down material. So queen a5, knight e5, and we take, and then queen f6. It's just a perpetual. So that move leads to a forced draw, it seems, and there's no way really for either side to deviate advantageously. b5 was played instead, which is a dreadful blunder. It's a very, very bad move. It attempts to start a counter attack, because attack is the best form of defense, but now drip chop's knight comes into e5. I think at this point, she spent practically all remaining time. She went down to spend 45 minutes on this, nearly resigned, and went down to about a minute for about 16 moves, plus the increment. Of course, because this move is a complete bone cruncher. Houdini is singing, and he has no defense. It's practically a mate in this move. If I had to credit, she plays the only move to avoid mate after that thing with king e8. It's the only move that avoids instant mate. In fact, it doesn't even avoid mate actually. In fact, knight e5 is a forced mate. A completely forced mate actually from this position. A cookie if you work it all out. Because no move. King e8 is the move that holds out the longest because it's just a mating 8. And the move that actually mates was not played. In fact, neither of the two completely winning moves are actually played. The mate is knight takes d7. The point is, if bishop d7, okay, now that was quite an easy move actually, so I didn't give you it as a test, but now the test is, okay, there's a few wins, but what move is actually the forced mate? It's a beautiful move. I mean, of course, you can just play rook h8 check and force queen f8 and win the queen, but why not just play c5 instead? Just cut the queen out of the defense. And defenseless. Of course, the mate is only like 5 moves because it can throw in a few checks to avoid it and suicide chess, but nothing could be done against rook h8 and queen f6. Sad, isn't it? So, another option was to play rook h8 check, which, if king e7, then this is a mate. If the queen doesn't block and knight f8 is played, then again c5, followed by moving the queen to attack the knight again, is completely winning. Or in fact, I would say queen a4, we just actually just sack. And then check, 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 checkmate. But drip chop for some reason forgets to the move and plays knight c6, which and missed bishop b7, the only saving move. But still actually pretty winning this. Rook h8 check is played. Only move knight f8. And now in this position, there's still quite a nice move. Again, if you want to try and spot it, please stop the video. You could have played queen b6, which is not an easy move to find. Of course, if the knight's taken, then we'll take it back and we'll fuck the king at rook. And the best bet is probably to try and go on a counter attack. Queen takes c3, sack the bishop. So now drip chops the pawn up with all his pieces inside the position. And now he has to start giving checks, so he's going to get mated. I mean, she is. Queen e1 check. Now king b2 actually does allow perpetual, but king c2 doesn't allow perpetual for some reason. Again, we have to keep the checks up, so we take this guy. King d3. Another check. Ignore it. Another check. Oh my god, this line's brilliant. There's the king just comes right out of the mud. Oh my god, this is brilliant. This is getting my adrenaline up very high. After queen f5 check, we play king d6. Wow. Oh, and after the check on here, king comes into c7. Now this is beautiful, this. And amazingly enough, after the only other check, which is queen d7 check, king b6, there's actually not a single check left. So white's king has come all the way up from the queen side all the way up to the b6 square, like Nigel Short style, and there is no check, so now black can't deal with multiple threats. The strongest line actually is after he's not to play queen d7, but in this position to play rook d8, which looks completely crazy. But now, because now white has rook takes f8, king takes f8, queen b4 check, and now the king cannot keep defending the rook, so it has to go to here, and then we'll take the knight. And now drip drops a piece up, and as long as he doesn't get fall for perpetual, he should win. But that would take some calculation and nerve to play running your king up like that. Shame he didn't get stopped by g5 at any point. But now he played knight e5 instead, which is a complete blunder. Another alternative was to bail out with rook takes f8 check, where king takes f8 gets mated in one move, so the queen would have to take. And now we play queen b6 this time. And after either queen d6, after bishop c6, queen c6, white gives a perpetual rook down. Nothing black can do, because if of course we're going to d8 drops a rook with check, which is not very ideal. And another option is after queen b6, black can get the perpetual instead, because after queen d6, queen takes b7, the only move. Black can give a perpetual like this. Because if white starts trying to avoid it, bad things start to happen. Because, well, first of all, if king a3 gets mated, and king a1 gets a rather humiliating mate as well. But if white starts trying to play king b3, then we have this check as well. And then there's like another check here. And then black can actually start playing for win actually now by taking the queens off. So if king takes b5, got rook takes a2, and black gets a better ending, with white's weak pawns not being enough in the exchange. But man, this is sharp stuff, man. But knight e5, because the problem with these sharp positions is, although they might be easily winning on the engine, because engines see tactics like instantly, in the game they can be quite difficult to calculate, especially under the pressure. Like I've always said that I'm quite good at analysing, but when I actually play a game of chess, I actually cannot play it because I always see ghosts and all them sort of things. Because the problem is now rook d8 is played, which again is the only move, and in fact the chopper is going to get mated unless he sacks his exchange in f8, which is leaving the full rook behind. And now he does play queen b6 finally, and she actually misses queen a3, which she wins on the spot, but she was a very short time because she spent that long on the move when she was getting mated by force and nearly resigned. Because this forces drip drop to give his queen up to avoid mate, because rook d1 otherwise for a mating attack. Say for example, queen takes b7, it goes rook d1, king c2, queen a4, king b2, rook d2, and then wherever the king goes, this is mate next move. But bishop e4 check was played instead, king moves, and then queen d6, which offers a queen swap, which is practically forced. And the rest is a matter of technique, and this is resignable, but drip drop was completely stunned by the turn of events, like we all would be, and plays on for quite a while. But it's just very simple. Now she's reached the time control, so it's soon time to resign. Okay, am I get this pawn through? Am I get it through? No chance. And it's time to throw in the towel, I'm afraid. So it's a very sad end actually to what was quite a promising tournament for drip drop. But he did on the bright side get the same score as me, albeit my opponent spelled 160 points lower rated on average and a sympathy buy, but still, get the same score as T-Unit is a good achievement. And Toei actually, I managed to beat twice, actually got more points than us, but then again he did have a sympathy buy as well, and a lot lower average rate of opponents than me. But still, yeah, some quite interesting games here, and some very close ones. Were a bit like mine actually, where he should have got more, but he didn't get as many points as he deserved. I think me and him should both got maybe 5.5, but sadly it wasn't to be. But I hope you enjoyed my series on Drip Drops games. And my next stop will be to do other games. I need to start doing some main championship games, I think. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed Drip Drops games, and see you for another series. And just to finish off with that night, sadly was the last night as well of a very good tournament, and we had a nice laugh. We managed to have some nice wine, and we managed to forget about it for that night, this horrible loss. We had a right cracking laugh, all of us, the Drip Drop gang. And by the way, it's a force mate in 23 moves this position, if you want to try and spot it. And he went home about midnight, so his coach back to London. And then the prize given the next day, which I didn't mention in I didn't mention this in my last video. That's the problem. I just completely forgot. And then we attended the prize given next day, and we had got a shark beanie for Steve Crockett, which I presented to him after the prize giving, and we got a picture of it, and it was a good laugh. And then I started my journey back to Hilton Manor, which is about 5 or 6 hours long, because they have the M5 and the M6. And overall, it was such an absolute terrific tournament, and the best 2 weeks of my life. And I must thank Lara and everyone who organised it as well, for it was such a great time, and I cannot wait for Aberystwyth in 2014. Some great laughs, and me, Drip Drop, and everyone will be there. But for now, please leave in the comments some thoughts. Thanks very much.